Mr Chair, I'd happily like to answer a couple of the questions that the member raises. If I could start perhaps by Puhoi to Wellsford, because somehow the previous government thought that it was a very good idea to build a new motorway north from Auckland to Puhoi and put it alongside the old highway and make it 3 lanes of traffic disappearing into a paddock just outside of Puhoi. None of the traffic had left the road at that point, but it was a really good idea to build a really long road there and then stop it where there was no traffic leaving the road. One of the silliest roading decisions ever made in this country by the previous government. And I'd also like to point something else out for the opposition, and that road carries something like 25,000 people a day. 25,000 people a day. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Between Puhoi and Warkworth, the numbers for vehicles, around now 19,000 vehicles, about 25,000 people a day, according to 1.5. Puhoi to Warkworth. And the opposition talks constantly about how we should put that money into rail in Auckland. Now, I think rail in Auckland is important, but just to get the comparator right, we currently have around 22,000 passengers on the entire Auckland commuter rail network every day. So the Puhoi to Warkworth section of State Highway 1 has more traffic on it than the entire Auckland commuter rail network has on an average day. That's the reality of the situation. So the opposition says that we should not invest in this highway, that we should stop it in a paddock at Puhoi and not invest in it despite the high level of usage of that road, and that's the ridiculous nature of the opposition's approach to transport. And another example, Mr Chair, is this. The second example is the highway north of Wellington, where the previous government put the fingers in the ears and said, we don't have to worry about whether we have a plan for State Highway 1 north of our capital city. We'd prefer not to have to think about whether we'd have to have a plan for that, because it's a bit hard and we don't want to talk to people about that. So what we'll do is we'll take the one highway designation that's reasonably possible north of Wellington, the one highway designation that was reasonably possible, and they said, yeah, take it, use it for a link road. We won't need it for the highway. We won't worry about the highway. We'll just have the thundering traffic on the old road with all the access issues. We won't even think about the future. And that was the approach. So when I went up the coast talking to the local district, and I said to them, where does State Highway 1 go? Where does State Highway 1 go in this Grand Master Plan? They said, well, we really can't tell you. Maybe there's a third designation. And of course, that's what we all had to go through last year. And the reality is there isn't a third designation that's acceptable for the local community. There is a designation there which is acceptable, and that should be used for New Zealand's highway. And in fact, it's not just about the Kapiti Coast. It's also about Palmerston North. It's about Levin. It's about Wanganui. It's about the whole lower North Island linking to Wellington, Mr Chair. That's what's very important. And then the third thing I think we should draw to the opposition's attention, Mr Chair, is somehow they thought they would be paying for their roading projects. They keep saying, oh, we were going to do that, we were going to do that. But they cut the budget. Just before they left office, they cut the budget, and in the government policy statement for state highways signed off by the previous minister going forward was around $650 million a year in state highway investment. That's what it was. It is now $1 billion a year. So what they were going to do is they were going to have to delay Victoria Park. They had no plan for Waterview. They were going to borrow stacks of money for Waterview outside of the fan, increase the government's fiscal deficit. These were their plans. They did not have any, and they couldn't afford to pay for Transmission Gully. So now we have a $10.7 billion pipeline to invest in these roads of national significance, and somehow the opposition is trying to tell us they would have done some of them. Well, they wouldn't have had the money because they were flittering it away on everything else in their classic just throw money around to whoever wants it. And what we've done is we've got a much better system running with the government policy statement for the investment in the highways, Mr Chair, and I'm very proud that we're going to see real opportunities for economic growth by investing in not just these 7 projects, but all the non-RONS projects. They never found the time to do the Kopu Bridge. They never had the time to do the Matahurua Gorge. They never found the time to extend the Southern Hawke's Bay motorway. All these things have been done and started by this government, and of course Victoria Park being one of the biggest ones overall. So I think the problem is that the member opposite has no understanding of the importance of prioritising and getting this infrastructure right and spending in the right places. Thank you, Mr Chair.
Point of order, the Honourable Darren Hughes.
Seek leave to table a document called Puhoi to Wellsford Project Summary Statement, one of the Minister's roads of personal significance.
Is this in the public domain?
Yes, it is.
It's a published document?
It's been published by the New Zealand Transport Agency, but I wouldn't have thought it's readily available. It's a road north of Auckland.
It's readily available, so we won't table it. Dr Jackie Blue.
Chair, tēnā tātou te